So here we are on August 1st, and it is the beginning of the month for RPG A Day 2024. If I remember correctly, this is its 11th year going on. And as we try and do every year around this time, if we haven't been able to, this is when we get back into making videos for YouTube, as I see by some unfinished business I have left on this channel. So for the first day, we're talking about our first RPG book or game purchase of 2024. So I believe it was towards the end of 2023, maybe sometime in December or the beginning of January 2024, when Ingrid Bernal, hankering, Runehammer, Drunkards and Dragons, was talking about starting up a brick and mortar store. And while I'm not a patron of Runehammer, that doesn't mean that I don't have a desire to support an independent creator, especially someone who's got enough guts to go into a brick and mortar business, especially your friendly local gaming store. We all know what that competition's like, I bet. So when I went to the website, it was still winter, so of course I bought a Runehammer sweatshirt, but was also pleased to notice that there was this game that I hadn't picked up yet from Ingrid. So I own ICRPG, but this one is Crown and Skull. So I believe it's 80 or 90 bucks, if I remember correctly. Of course, that's if you're getting the limited edition cover or the special edition cover. And the book is nice. It's weighty, digest size, if I remember correctly, 6x9, I think, somewhere in there. Very well put together, nicely laid out, great artwork by Ingrid himself and other artists who have work in it. And so let's kind of take a look at it. So here we've got the book, a nice faux leather cover, nice gilding. It's very well put together. Of course, our obligatory bookmark. The page weight and color is very nice. I don't necessarily think of myself as a bibliophile, but I can appreciate a good book. Following along with what's been happening a lot in RPG book design, the end pages are being used here to give us a full color map of the setting which is provided. And that's one thing I want to initially get out of the way right away, is that other than the book, you just need dice and some paper and pencils, which is typical of games like this. The color quality of the end pages map is nice. The areas where the forest is located is a little bit color dense, but that could just be my eyes, as I've had to start using reading glasses after a while. The hex map does not become obtrusive. It blends into the background fairly well and is noticeable where you need to, and when it is not noticeable, it's pretty easy to tell where the hexes start and stop. All the various locations within the setting are highlighted by icons which have a nice off-white to grayish white background, so it makes them easy to identify. The book is very self-contained and contains the rules one needs to play the game, along with a setting, fairly complete, and a bestiary, list of enemies, foes, and whatnot. So we're just going to kind of quickly go into it. Like I said, I have not played the game, so this is not really going to be a review of the game itself and how it plays. Although after my reading, the game feels very easy to understand. The game feels very easy to teach. In fact, there's sections in the book that even talk about how to teach how to play the game. But the complexity level is not so much that it's going to take up a lot of space in your brain as you try and learn to play the game as you're playing the game. And as I said, the artwork contained within and the book itself is primarily in black and white, which is not a big deal. Full table of contents, and this kind of starts giving you an idea of how the book is laid out already. The page decoration is not so obtrusive as to reduce the amount of information that can be put on the page. It's done very well. Gutters are laid out in the book very well. You don't feel like there's a lot of stuff falling down into the gutter of the book. So I'm just simply holding the page there, and I can still get a good view of what's going on. Of course, this is just the first couple of pages. So you can kind of see here what all goes into getting the, and we'll get the remote out of the way here, getting into what goes into the contents of the book, of course. 342 pages, the last of which is the rules cheat sheet. So player's guide, path of magic, a whole section of illustrations, starts on page 89 and goes to 115. The GM section, atlas, dungeons, enemies, and tables and treasures. The tables are one of the things that make it very easy to get through this book quickly if you try to read it from cover to cover, because you don't always necessarily want to read or have a desire to read tables, as it were. So we start off with a little fiction and we go through it pretty quickly. These learning stones are usually like a bit of fiction to give context to the book. I know a lot of people don't like fiction within a role-playing game's playbook, but for those of you that can appreciate someone's writing, it's good to have the author's headspace in fiction as well. Of course, we go through the obligatory parts about creating characters and making roles and how the game flows. This is a point-buy system, more or less, and the characters are very straightforward. So here we have a section where we're talking about just basic, straightforward character templates if you would just want to get up a 3x5 card out and get up and going, because this is what you need for a soldier, adventurer, sage, smith, cleric, or hoodlum, right? And these are very generic. Some names sound familiar, some names sound very generic, some names just allude to what they might be. Like we don't often see smith as being a specific character that you might play, but soldier and sage do sound that way. Hoodlum and adventurer, not always something you see as a choice. And this is one of the parts that this game really kind of, I want to say, hammers home about making a character. It places a lot of emphasis on these prompts, which you could just pick through or roll from a table. And the way it starts out is, I am a Proudfoot citizen equipped with armor from the marshlands. It all started when the sky went dark, but now I will have my revenge. So you could roll or pick. Then you, of course, here we have discussions about customizing characters, character flaws, core abilities, and skills. It's always interesting to see when skills are included, how the skills are categorized, what skills get lumped together, what skills don't. It often kind of plays a part in getting a feel for what you might be doing in a game as well. You can roll or buy equipment from various lists. Damage is very straightforward. Defense is very straightforward. I'm not going to talk a lot about the actual play of the game. So I'm not going to get into how rolls are made or anything like that. But overall, I found character creation to be fairly inspired. It's a different take on the idea of making a character for a role-playing game. It's always interesting to see how people go about it. There's also a section when you get more familiar with it about customizing spells and making your own spells. And it breaks up quite a lot into various different sections, even within the character generation part of it here. So we talk about renown and deeds, which are important to the game or could be important to your character, and an actual incorporation of the title of the game, Crown and Skull, into the playing of the game. So here we've got crown skills, skull skills, if you're using things like that, heroes of the realm, probably various NPCs. Here we get into various types of magic. all interesting insights into how people look at, in particular, a fantasy role-playing game when we're talking about Magic. Not very often, not common much anymore, where we have an entire section of the book devoted to illustration plates, which allows the rest of the text to kind of just flow as it is, especially in a book of this size, right? When we look at Forbidden Lands from Free League, it may feel awkward in a book this size or close to this size to have a chunk of art placed in the page, especially when we're using page borders. But you can tell that a lot of thought and effort went into the layout and how this book is read and how this book is engaged with as an artifact of play, and possibly just as part of your collection if that's what you're into. But there's loads of stuff in here, loads of stuff. And the way it breaks up into its various sections, we talk about different locations, getting into the atlas here. Here's a black and white version, nearly a little over halfway through the book. And you can kind of see here, it does a fairly good job of staying open on its own. The binding of the book is, fine as it is. As I said, there's not a lot of issue with gutter read, and the book does like to be open. There's a lot of room at the back of that spine there. You can see that we've got all the various signatures sewn together and then glued in or taped in with a large amount of space at the back of the spine to allow the book to fold quite a lot. So it's just one of those things. If you like books, it's always nice to have something that's well put together. And black and white version of the same map. Then we start going through and talking about travel and hex rolls and area types and regions. So here we've got the breakup of the map as we go through the settings section, locations and landmarks. And it's not just within, that each one of these is a landmark. We've got a combination of D10 locations, the greenstone with D10 locations and D10 events. And like I said, especially with events, the more you're familiar with a setting, the easier it is to kind of like say, okay, I like a lot of these on here, but I want to do something a little bit different, so I might tweak the entries a little bit more to give some additional variation. But there's just a load of stuff in here for a very complete book and complete game. So we're going through now, and now we're getting into the dungeons section, which is not as thick as the Atlas section, but definitely provides quite a lot of information, right? If you're looking for a self-contained game, here we've got the start of our foes and enemies section, right? And you're not buying a box set, a complete book or game in one book is a great way to go, and definitely a solid investment. The stat blocks are very straightforward. Here we have the frost lizard, the gargoyle, right? And there's no spillover, so there is no, what do you call it, a grandfather paragraph positioned up onto another page. This is what I mean by the parts of the book also make use of the form factor of the book and the way that the formatting is done by page, which just allows the information to soak up the amount of space that it needs to or expand to fill all space available. There are very few creatures that take up an entire page. Like here we have the Wraith. There's a lot, so there's a lot there. Here we have Assassin. Here we have Bog Witch. 3 creatures right in a row. Demon doesn't really get a full, page treatment, but it definitely still leaves a lot of room for you to add in whatever you like. So we peel through the enemy section, here we get to tables and treasures. Loads and loads of tables that could either be rolled on or used for inspiration. The thing about tables that can often be interesting is looking at the tables for loot or found treasure as a way to see what the game holds valuable as a reward. And it can also give a little bit of insight into the found economy of a game and a game world. It just really, not just the names of rare books, but a nice full page treatment. Here is the Rituals of Blood, right? Here is the Blackmore Sleep Experiment. Just really good sections. Ordinary Folk, Random Crazy Guy, right? Homestead Family, D100 People to Meet. Some specific examples. Here we have some characters from the pictures that were drawn by various artists. So these are adventures of note. And on the shoulders of many do we tread to see such wonders. No one book could truly give you all that is needed for a brilliant, ever unfolding campaign. So here we've got essentially like an Appendix N, gives you an idea of the various influences of a game. And if you really want to see how dense the rules are, that's it. These 2 pages right here, which could be printed on one side of a single piece of printer paper, standard letter sized. So not bad at all. For a game that can find itself landing on a rule set size like that and expand itself creatively into a book, call it 1.5 inches, definitely not 2 inches. Well, it might be 2 inches, but it's about 2 inches. So that's Crown and Skull. I was really pleased with the purchase of the book. And I've done, like I said, even though I haven't had a chance to play it or run it, it has been a book that at this point I've been technically through 1.5 times because it does hold a lot of interest for me. And it's well worth the investment if you're thinking about a game that you want to try and get into that is pretty self-contained. And you won't need anything else other than an index card, a pencil, and some dice. And that's really about it. Or a sheet of paper. Or a reporter's notebook, spiral. So that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah. Or a little spiral notepad like reporters use, where it's like the book of the character, if you will, right? The form factor is nice. The way it is laid out is nice. The font is nice. I've gotten to that point where I have to start using reading glasses. And even without reading glasses, this is one of the few books that I can read and see decently well. Now, it may just be the leading and the spacing and the kerning and all that of the actual text that has made it easy for me, along with the style of paper. But more often, I find myself wearing these days. It does come in 2 different styles. Special edition cover, standard cover, so you don't have to, spend a load on getting the game. And that's going to wrap up day one for RPG A Day 2024. So get out there, have fun, and just be cool with each other. Talk to you guys later.